I was informed yesterday evening in a letter from the ambassador of the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia in The Hague that I would not be permitted to conduct investigations in Kosovo. Specifically, the ambassador put it to me in the following terms, and I quote, "As you have already been informed, the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia does not accept any investigation of ICTY in Kosovo and Metohija generally, nor during your stay in the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia." End of quote. If we go back to January 1998, for instance, there was already a lot of information coming out of Kosovo that things weren't going well, that the police were very rough, that there were incidents here and there. Now, I had two problems. The first problem is that all our resources internally were committed. My other big problem was that we only had jurisdiction in Kosovo if there was an armed conflict. To have an armed conflict, you need organized combatants, armies, or organizations that have a command structure. We knew at that point very little about the KLA. And Milosevic, of course, was always calling them a bunch of terrorists. So we started collecting information on the KLA. And then Ratchak, January 99, blew up. By then, we were ready. We knew we had an armed conflict. We had the basis for that. So I felt very sure when I asserted my right to enter. I decided to go. I was very transparent. First of all, I told the Secretary General, Kofi Annan, that I was going to go because I knew this was going to be somewhat difficult. I also told Belgrade. I sent someone to the Foreign Ministry in Belgrade, and I told them that I would actually, visa or no visa, present myself at the border the next day. So it didn't take them by surprise. In fact, they were very well prepared to deny me entry. I entered the custom post. I asked to speak to the person who was in charge. I spoke to an officer who identified himself only by a badge number, and he told me that he had authority. He knew who I was. I repeated to him that I was the prosecutor of the War Crimes Tribunal, that I had a mandate under Chapter 7 of the UN Charter, that I was entitled to enter all the territory of the former Yugoslavia to conduct investigations, and that he should let me in. He told me that I needed a visa and I could apply at the embassy in Skopje. And I came back to The Hague almost ready to write a letter of resignation. I felt, I can't do this, obviously. There's nothing else I could have tried, and it didn't work. And yet, when I arrived in my office in The Hague, the staff were lined up applauding. This was viewed from the outside as a great success moment of the tribunal, a moment of force and of visibility. And then I realized that image and the power of the message, this confrontation on the border, was immensely important to explain to the world the work of the tribunals. Let me just say at the outset a couple of, I think, quite critically important points. The first one is that we will be investigating the massacre at Ratchak. We will continue to do so with or without access to the territory. I also want to stress, again, very unequivocally, that this question of access to the territory and to the evidence that will be available on the territory is a critical issue. We are entitled to it as a matter of law. It's my firm position. Many government sources and NATO officials have indicated in the last few weeks that they have evidence of the commission of war crimes in Kosovo, and that they are willing to make that information available to the tribunal. It is my view that an unprecedented input from states is now required in this regard if the tribunal is to be able to advance significantly beyond the evidence of the refugees and expose the role of senior military and police commanders as well as political leaders. I never received instructions from NATO. I never sought instructions from them. I certainly never asked them, what do you think about the Milosevic indictment now or tomorrow or in 3 weeks? Would it be good or bad? Frankly, I think they had no idea. I think they were very ambivalent as to whether this would precipitate a settlement of the conflict or precipitate an endless war. My guess is that if I had asked, they would have told me to do nothing, mostly because I believe that they don't like the uncertainty of a process they can't control. The question of the possible Milosevic being put out of reach of the tribunal was a huge concern for me. This bombing campaign had been going on for weeks. And I assumed that part of the exit strategy might have involved either an amnesty, which frankly I think would not have been binding on the tribunal. Only an amnesty issued by the Security Council could have had legal effect. So I wasn't worried about a legally binding end to that process, but I was worried about a deal that would make him more out of reach and make it more difficult in reality to move forward. So I figured, certainly from that point of view, that the sooner we move, the better. On May 22nd, I presented an indictment for confirmation against Slobodan Milosevic and 4 others, charging them with crimes against humanity, specifically murder, deportation, and persecutions, and with violations of the laws and customs of war. The indictment was confirmed by a judge of this tribunal on May 24. The following accused are jointly indicted: Slobodan Milosevic, President of the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia; Milan Milutinovic, President of the Republic of Serbia; Nikola Shajinovic, Deputy Prime Minister of the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia; Dragoljub Ojdanic, Chief of the General Staff of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia; and Vlajko Stojilkovic, Minister of Internal Affairs of the Republic of Serbia. Well, the reaction I got was, as is usually the case, the first reaction was from the press, and the press was overwhelmingly positive, and therefore the political response was also very positive. I mean, to me, that's quite inevitable. I think if the reaction coming out of the media had been negative and so on, I'm sure that I would have heard in no uncertain terms what a foolish thing I'd done and how dare I go alone. And every step we take, every grave that we uncover, every indictment we bring, I think, is an irreversible step forward. I don't know when this is going to happen, that there will be a telling of today's story in the courtrooms of The Hague, but there's no doubt in my mind that there will be.